marketing plan. Okay, so that's where all the files that you just copied to your flash drive is, or on a computer there, okay. If you have your own Google Drive, you know, just copy them over to your drive or whatever, but all the files are there. Okay. All good? Okay, and on the Blackboard Learn site, we, in Introduction to Market Gardening, in the crop planning section, okay, here we're just going to scroll up here. So that's under topic 4, right? And under topic 4, there's a subtopic where set your objectives and financial goals, okay? And in this section here, there was a couple of exercises here to try to help you figure out what your life goals are. Okay, I don't know if you guys did those exercises, but basically it's just to get you thinking, right? It was trying to establish values, right? Because goals are really closely associated to your values, right? Like Richard, what do you value in life?
I don't know if I'm capable of answering that question right now. No, what do I value in life? My connections with people, my health, my privilege, I guess. Those kind of things. Is that kind of the answers?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Those things came out just like that. Right?
Yeah.
And so I would say those are really high level values, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Verena, what values do you have? What do you value in your life?
My community that supports me and I support them.
Nice. Community.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Alex, what do you value?
A roof over my head.
Okay.
And food in my tummy. And living in Canada.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So those are really basic needs, eh? That's if you don't have those things, you don't have much. Eric, good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Good morning, Eric.
It's a real hard question.
Yeah. Rose, what do you value?
Wow. There's a lot of different things, and I guess it depends on what aspect of.
Copy these files to your desktop or your flash drive and copy to your flash drive?
Life, I guess, integrity and authenticity for sure. And of course, health and good nutrition and access to that, I think.
Okay. So nutrition, good. All right, so I would say, you know, keeping those values in mind is you should always have that when you're starting to set your goals for your personal goals and perhaps your business goals. Because if your business goals don't align with your personal goals, then you're not going to be very happy, right? So you guys, do you have any personal goals? Oh, Richard got one.
Yeah. Like, are you talking about the business plan or just generic goals?
Just general ones, yeah.
Well, I want to be able to own my own property.
Nice.
I like to be able to work some of that property so I can either make processed goods or feed myself and just have a spot that I can be, you know, in the dirt on my own property, you know? It doesn't have to be large like Shelter Farms is, but
Yeah.
you know, if I could have a greenhouse, a couple hoop houses, and then a couple beds, that would be nice. Something manageable,
Right.
you know?
Oh, excellent. Okay, so there's your big goal in life that you want to attain. So your business goal should support that, all right?
Yeah.
Rena, you have a goal, like a personal goal.
Similar, yeah, own a little bit of land and
Exactly.
find somebody to help me with that land,
Yeah?
you know? Somebody that has, like,
Thanks
minded
for
goals.
reminding me, Tasha.
Mm-hmm.
Out in the middle of nowhere in Mahi.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing if it happens.
It's been 8 years since I thought about it,
Yeah?
and I just, you know, I think it's getting more realistic
Yeah?
as time goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's still like a big order, right? So-
Yes, it sure is. And the timing's got to be right.
Timing's
you know?
gotta be right.
And you have to have all those resources in place before you jump into that.
Yeah.
But some people just jump into it.
Some people do, and I'm not one of those.
Yeah, and
I admire it, but I'm not
Yeah.
somebody that can just jump in.
Yeah.
It takes me a long, careful
Right.
process.
Well, you know, the thing is, when people jump into things, they don't usually succeed, right?
Yeah.
They usually, it fails, you know, and then, they start all over again, or get totally discouraged and abandon the idea.
Yeah, and I don't wanna feel like an intruder
Yeah.
on the land where I can go. I don't wanna feel like I'm stepping on anybody's toes. So, you know, I wanna be able to help to, like, be able to give back in some way.
Okay,
You're not just taking,
Yeah, not just take,
right,
yeah.
good. Richard?
I had a question about, so people like my sister and people who work for Shopify and stuff who work from home,
Right,
they can write off in their taxes, like, you know, my sister's office takes up 10% of the house, and they can
Right.
they can write off 10% of their electrical bill, their mortgage, and those things. Can you do the same thing if you're using like you're farming for produce on your small property and you're using it to make money at a flea market? Can you then write off some of that in your taxes, or?
yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah, anything that's a legitimate,
Enterprise.
expense, and using the space, I guess that's, I would even
Amy's leaving.
argue that you could use more than 10%.
Well,
10% is the minimal, right?
Yeah.
But if you can prove that you're using like 50% or whatever
Sure,
of your
yeah,
land
yeah.
for growing food, then you should be able to claim those expenses, the taxes on it, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna, mention to Richard about that question, that when I was, helping Amy's, farmer friend there that she
Yeah.
lives with,
Jan, yeah?
Yeah, Jan. She's an accountant, and she was telling
Oh,
me
I
little
don't know.
tidbits about, yeah, her background is in accounting.
Oh.
So she runs that livestock farm, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she knows like all of the tax rules.
Hmm, good, smart
which
one.
they're- Yeah,
Good person to talk to.
talk to, yeah.
Interesting.
Can't remember what it was she was talking about, I think her vehicle that she drives.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's got a special license because,
Okay, Eric, do you have any personal goals?
I'm just sending the project to Connie.
Oh, okay.
I already, where you do a floor plan of your,
Your greenhouse?
greenhouse, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
So,
Yeah,
I was half listening, sorry.
sorry, yeah, okay, I gathered that.
What was-
So personal goals is basically, what are your goals for life right now?
To finish this course.
Okay, I like that one.
To start working,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
to make some cash, right,
right,
yeah,
good, earn some money.
yeah, right,
Right, that's why we're here.
exactly.
Excellent, all right.
yay.
Rose, did you wanna share any goals with us?
oh, yeah, yeah, I would love to have,
These are personal goals, right?
yeah,
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 not business goals.
yeah, but it kind of ties in because I'd love to have, you know, a nice little piece of land, my own home, that I
Yeah.
own. And, yeah, my greenhouse. Yeah, that's kind of part of my goal, but also be, financially stable so that I enjoy what I'm doing and can, you know, be part of a community. So trying to find the right community, and, you know, having that access to my own place.
Good, okay, so here's another one, similar to, Rena's community is really important, that connection, and, excellent, thank you. So, this morning what we're talking about is financial goals, right? So, where would you wanna be in a year? Where would you wanna be in 5 years from now, okay? And that's sometimes a kind of a complicated thing to think about. Okay, so what do you need to be comfortable? How much money do you need to make as income?
It's just, I always forget, is static, when someone says it's static, does that mean it stays the same number, or is static always changing?
Static, it stays the same.
Okay.
And what we're talking about here is like for this year, I want to set a financial goal of, let's say, $10,000, and then, you know, and that would increase by $10,000 every year, and by year 5, I'm making $50,000 and I'm where I want to be, right? Now these are kind of like business goals, right? If you went and got a job, you know, you'd be working by the hour and you'd be making whatever you make in a year, right? With business goals, a little bit different. You're going to try to build your business up, the capacity of the business, until you can meet those goals. Does that make sense to you guys?
Is it true that 10% a year is like a good level of growth?
Technically, like when you talk to like investors and stockbrokers and people who try to invest their money, 10% is like the average goal. You know, if you do 10%, they're more or less okay with what happened, but less than that, it's considered like a failure for the investment. Like if you don't make 10%, then you didn't use that money right.
Yeah.
So growing by 10% is the same idea, because inflation is what, 3 point something?
Too high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, either way. So as long as you're gaining more, like 5+, I would say you're getting ahead of the curve, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting ahead of the rat race, if you want to use those
The
terms.
rat race is rigged.
Well, yeah.
Rigged from top to bottom.
Yeah, no kidding.
But that's the idea. If you're growing at 5 to 10% every year, then at least you know you're not going to be drowning. At least you're treading water in a sense, if that's another
Yeah,
term you
breaking
use.
even.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So on your flash drive there, or on those files that you copied on your desktop, there is a spreadsheet. It's called cash flow projections. Right, so see up here, we have these two columns here, rows here. So gross sales, net profit, all right? So we're assuming that you're about a 50% net profit. Quite honestly, your profit margins for your first year are probably going to be close to 30%, right? Because you're inexperienced. Your net profits for your first year are probably going to be closer to 30%, maybe even lower, right? Depends like on your expenses. Your expenses, probably going to incur your most expenses the first year, second year, but you're going to try to spread out those expenses over 3 years, and we'll talk about that soon here. Actually, that next tab here, the cash flow, talks about projection for over 5 years, right? So this is presuming you get 50% profits margin here, all right? So I'm just using this as an example, right? So if your gross sales are $10,000, okay, in this example here, so if you wanted in year 5 to have a net profit of 30,000, then in year 5 you're probably, your efficiency is going up, so that your gross sales would be 60,000, right? So this is assuming that your efficiency is increasing every year. So you see here in these examples, the second example here, we use 60,000 is your gross sales, 30,000 is your net profit in year 5. And then we fill in all these numbers down here, right? So this is the same numbers. I'm just showing you step by step here. So we got gross sales, 10,000 this year, and net profit 2,000 in year 1. The gross sales are 20,000, so we've doubled our sales, but our net profit 6,000. And you see, our profit margin is slowly increasing, right? This is just basically playing with some numbers to see how much you need to make in gross sales to meet your financial goals, right? Right? If you're wanting to make like $30,000 net profit, you need to sell $60,000 worth of produce. Okay? So the next step is to figure out how you're going to get there to that goal, right? So what we need to do is create some sales projections. We're going to look at different revenue streams. And we talked about this last week about, in my marketing chart here, I'll bring that up. Remember showing you this thing here?
Yeah.
So the 5 revenue streams that pretty common for everybody in market gardening, okay? So we have farmers market, we have, these are like Tofino Culinary Guild, so these are like resellers, like people that buy products and resell it, and restaurants, so someone you would sell your products to, and they would produce a value-added product, serve the clients, and CSAs, community support and agriculture, and online sales, all right? So we'll talk about these 5 things. So, what do you think is the easiest market for you guys to access?
Well, our local, the community markets, the farmers markets, the flea markets, the local grocers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay. So the farmers market would be one to start off with, right? Okay. And or let's say restaurants, like you suggested, right?
What, gas station?
And you could do a CSA, community supported agriculture, right? Okay, so just different ones. So the farmers market's probably your least barrier, right? You can basically don't even need a business license. You join the farmers market, costs you $120 a year here, and you just show up, you get a table, and you start selling your produce. You don't have to have a storefront. You don't have, a lot of expenses. For like to get into retail, that's probably your least barrier, right? You don't have to rent a space like in a store or a booth or whatever. Just probably looking at insurance, probably. Liability insurance would be wise, right? And then with the Tofino Tulip Guild, how easy is that to access? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. So the Tofino Tulip Guild is basically, if you're growing some food, you would just contact them and you just tell them you're interested in selling to them. And then every week you would tell them what you have available. And restaurants, I'd like to talk about that one, all right? So that one there, I would suggest that you're gonna set up an appointment and talk to the chef and see how much produce that he goes through every week, what he likes, right? And see if you can provide that. A community supported agriculture, we talked a bit about that. And so that takes a lot more planning because there's a logistics part of this thing. You're selling direct to your customer, but you're selling every week to that same customer, and you have to be able to provide enough produce in a box every week. But it's some good money to be made there. Facebook or the internet, you would have to set up a website, or you could just do sales on Facebook, just post that I've got like 10 pounds of pickling cucumbers, and people contact you and you sell directly to them, right? So there's your scenarios. So let's just start with the restaurant one first, for example. And on your drive, there is a folder. In the folder there, it's called vegetable order sheet. Okay? Looks like this. There's your vegetable order sheet. All right, so what I'm suggesting is, let's say I go to the Brie and Barrel and I say, look, I'd like, we're growing produce here this year and I'd like to sell to you. How much asparagus do you go through in a week? Of course, it's very seasonal. It's like a springtime crop. And so you're gonna probably put that in the notes here when it's available, right? Available right here, right? And then he's gonna tell you how much he's gonna need a week. So let's say he's gonna need 2 pounds of asparagus a week. And then you're gonna put the frequency, once a week or every 2 weeks or whatever there. And then you're gonna put some comments. And the comments here, where you're going to put on here, is like anything that's particular, like chefs are really picky about what they want, right? They may be specific on color, or they may be specific on the size of the produce. And generally it has to be perfect. It can't be any kind of pecks by birds or worms or wireworm. No damage at all, because presentation is everything. So what you want to do is set an appointment with the chef so that you can sit down with them, and you do this at a time when they're not too busy, right? Generally 2 o'clock in the afternoon is a good time. It's a time when they're you know, if they're doing breakfast, there's a breakfast rush, there's a lunch rush, there's a lunch rush, and there's a dinner rush. But at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, generally that's a good time for most chefs. There's kind of, they take a break then, right? It's after the lunch break. Okay, so you want to pick a time that's convenient for them, and you sit down with them and go through this list and find out what their preferences are, how much they want to go through in a week, whatever. Then you'll use these numbers to develop some sales projections, right? So if he needs like 2 pounds of asparagus every 2 pounds every week or whatever for 1 month, you know how many pounds of asparagus you need to grow for him, right? So you're going to use that number, and you also get the number of what the total value of this crop is going to be for this customer, right? So if you had, let's say, 4 weeks, so that's 4 weeks of asparagus, right? So I said 2 pounds a week, so that'd be 8 pounds, right? And anybody know what the going price for asparagus is?
$1 billion.
It's very high.
$6.99 or $5.99?
It ain't cheap. One of the best places to go for prices, the Organic Price Tracker website, this one here. I use this one a lot. It's Canadian, right? Canadian pricing, and I can select a region, right? So if I go, let's see, Vancouver Island, but I don't think there's going to be an asparagus available now on Vancouver Island. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's asparagus. So that's odd, but maybe this is, oh, these are really old prices of 2017. All right, so market price is $15.60, wholesale prices $14 per pound. So, really high wholesale prices. Generally, wholesale prices are like half price, you know, for a lot of items. But asparagus is a high-priced item because it's you don't get a lot of yield, and it takes you a long time to grow, and it's a big investment in time and money on your. So that's why it's higher in price. So if we had $8 pounds of asparagus for the brie and barrel, right? And we multiply that by 14, what do you get?
14 times what?
14 times 8.
8.
14 times 8 equals, no, that's not right. 14 times 8, $112. Okay, so that's what your potential sales would be for asparagus for that one crop for the brie and barrel. Okay, so you follow what I'm doing? So I would go down that list that I had,
Sample order sheet.
and I'm go down this list, figure out what the quantity is, how many, what the frequency is, and figure out what the pounds are for each crop. And now I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. Okay, so this is an actual order sheet for a restaurant, right? And so this customer said they wanted butterhead lettuce, 3 cases, 24 heads a week in the winter, and 6 cases, 24 heads in the summer per week. Okay? So now you're going to look at that and you're going to try to figure out what's the total sales potential of just the butterhead lettuce, right? So for each of these, you're going to do the same thing, like arugula, baby arugula, right? Because he's specific. He doesn't want the big leaf of arugula, he wants the baby leaf one. And he wants 4 pounds per week. So that's a pretty big bag of arugula, right? Everybody understand what's happening so far? We're contacting the chefs. We're setting up meetings so that we can establish what they want, and then we're going to make a plan so that we can provide them what they want. Okay, so it works kind of backwards, because a lot of people, what they do is they build a garden and they grow a ton of food and they have no market. They'll figure, oh, I'll figure that out later. And that's probably most people, most farmers, most gardeners, you know. The difference here is that we are market gardeners. We are growing for a market. So we have to establish our market first. So that's why it's so important. This is the difference of being successful and being a failure, right? So if you can make a plan before, like if you can go to the Brie and Barrel and say, I can grow you 200 heads of lettuce a month, right? They're gonna love it because they wanna buy local, and you'll provide to that customer those heads of lettuce. And they'll provide you your money to live on, right? Okay. No more complicated than
I
that.
think the biggest fear for me in
Mm-hmm.
that is, if I may,
Yep.
is, okay, I'll give you the example of how I grow, right?
Right.
I'm just testing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm just in the stage of beginning to learn how to grow it. Like
Yes.
I feel like we all have our strengths and
Right.
weaknesses, right?
Yes.
And I feel like, say for example, with my tomato plant,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I've had it since June 1st, and there's fruit on there. There's like lots of tomatoes, and I'm sitting there waiting for them to go red.
Yeah.
Right? Like that would be my biggest fear. Would be stepping into a business where you want to be able to satisfy your people that you're selling to,
Yeah.
but then, you know.
Okay, that's a very good comment, and I think everybody shares that concern. I think it's wise to be, you know, leery about just jumping into something without knowing what your potential, what you can actually deliver on.
Yeah.
You don't want to make a promise to someone and say, okay, I can deliver you 100, 200 heads of lettuce a week, and you can't deliver on it, right? So it's clear, just to be clear, is that so far you haven't signed any contracts.
No.
This is basically it's kind of like a introduction, if you want. You know, it's just basically you're saying, this is what I can do for you, but you're not committed to, by contract, to provide that many heads of lettuce a week or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there is some situations if you were selling to a grocery store, like Save on Foods, and yes, you could get sales contracts and have to provide that, and you'd be bound by contracts, and if you didn't, then you'd be breaching your contract, and there may be some
Legal.
penalties or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to worry about that. We're
But
not even gonna
restaurants
go
aren't. They don't operate on that system. They just.
we're just going to start small, right? I think the best thing to do is, in your situation, if you're at all apprehensive about being able to meet your goals, is start small. Keep it simple, right? Maybe just sell at the farmer's market, right? Farmer's market's the easiest one, right? But a restaurant, you could do at a restaurant if it's a friend. I'll give you an example, a real world example. John Callender, who was one of our students who graduated, she started her market garden, and she's selling to the fish and duck that's out at Sprout Lake Landing, right? And they're friends of hers. So she just made it clear is that if I have extra herbs or eggs or anything like this, I will sell it to you. So she didn't make any more commitment than that, right? Right. So I think it's wise to be, cautious about overextending yourself, right? Because that could be a big problem.
Yeah, that's
Right.
the thing.
Yeah. Quite honestly, I'll tell you this. I tend to be a little bit optimistic. I guess you gathered that. I think you got to be in this kind of line of work.
Yeah.
If you're farming and, farmers they're critical of what's happening out in the field all the time. They're always watching things, but they always think that next year is going to be a better year, right?
Yeah.
Always have that core feeling, right? Otherwise, we give up, right? It's hard, right? There's lots of failures, like today, this year with COVID.
The smoke was unexpected.
Smoke, all this stuff that's happening. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen from one week to the next.
Just roll the dice.
Pretty much. The smoke has created another real challenge for us. That's cutting down our light, right? Plants need light to grow.
Yeah.
So our production is going down right
Living
now
in a
because of the
chaotic
smoke.
system.
We got everything planted. We got $60,000 worth of potential crops in the ground, and it's smoky, and it's not much sun out there, and it's cold, and all those plants are going, well, I quit. I'm not growing.
Yeah.
Okay?
They've abandoned us. My beets have been abandoned.
Yeah, they're still there, but they need to be weeded.
Okay.
They're actually looking pretty good, but the weeds are
Probably doing the-
getting high.
Oh, Travis.
Okay, so the next step would be okay, so let's say I take restaurants, this column here. Now, I've had my conversation with the Brie and Barrel, and he says, I'll take your borrowed beets, right? And so you've extended all your numbers, you figured out how many pounds you need, and what the value of that customer, of the potential sales that you're going to make from that customer, like the Brie and Barrel. So over 25 weeks, I'm selling 25 pounds a week, right? So that equals 500 pounds. 500 pounds. That's a lot of beets. This is many restaurants, right? This is not just one restaurant.
Yeah.
So I would add all the restaurants together to get this number.
Are you selling wholesale or market?
The restaurant would be wholesale. Yeah. That said, you can, if you're selling to high-end restaurants, they're willing to pay a little bit better for quality. But the name of the game is you're competing against Cisco. So you're competing with industrial wholesale systems. And so some things, it's hard to say if your product is going to be better quality than what you're getting from Cisco, right? I had this comment from a wholesaler saying, I tried buying from local farmers, but the quality was not good and wasn't consistent, right? So he doesn't do it. He's interested in buying from us. When I talked to that was Circle Dairies, right? But he was critical, right? Had to kind of convince him and assure him that our product would be the highest quality and that we would assure that we could deliver complete orders when he would make an order. Are we ready to go there? No, we're not. All I did was basically introduce myself, find out if he's interested, and then there's that potential of developing that. Quite honestly, until we are all growing collectively, we're not going to be able to meet that market demand for Circle Dairies or Save On Foods or whatever. That's why I'm really interested in farmers cooperatives or forming a collective so we can work together to access that market. Okay, so for restaurants, that's where your numbers are looking at here. So 500 pounds to restaurants, this would be for 20 weeks. So this is for the whole year. And so $1,000 just for restaurants in beets, okay? And so what each of these columns, I have numbers worked out here. Like for farmers markets, I'm doing the same thing. 20 weeks, 25 pounds, 500 pounds. But at the farmers market, I get retail pricing, so it's twice the price, all right? So I'm making $2,000 at a farmers market, right? But I have a higher overhead with these things. My costs are higher because I have to pay someone to be at the farmer's market. Also takes a lot of prep time before and after the market to sell. Whereas if I sell to a restaurant, he orders 25 pounds of beets. I basically drop them off. I don't have to bundle them. I don't have to package them, bag them or whatever. I bring a box of beets and invoice them. See how that saves me a lot of time and a lot of money, right? Okay. So once you've got this worked out, you got your revenue streams and how much you're selling to each stream, right? You're going to, okay, so what I've done here is from that sheet that I just looked at, the marketing chart, I've got total numbers for each market. So I've got for 2020, right here, just this column, right? Online sales of 13,500, CSA 13,500. So I've got all my revenue streams. For 2020, total sales of $63,200. That's gross sales, okay? Not net profit. So what I've done is that every year I've increased production, right? So I'm looking, hopefully, at increasing my sales to these revenue streams every year. So that in 2024, 5 years from now, I have a total gross sales of $113,000. Will I get there? Well, right now, 2020 is not looking too good. It's not looking too good. We're probably half of that, right? I'm thinking if we're lucky, if we can get half of that sales projection. But I'm changing my strategy. I'm growing more root vegetables so that I can process it, create value-added products so we're not wasting our product. But I'm a little skeptical right now because of the weather. I think if the weather does not improve, we're not going to do too well. Climate change is creating all kinds of real challenges for us, obviously. Okay, so you see what's going on here? I've got a 5-year plan now that these are my projections for sales for all these revenue streams, right? Now, along with my revenue, I want to look at my expenses. So that's the cash flow tab in the cash flow projections sheet. So we're just going to scroll down here, we'll take a look at that. So expenses, you can put whatever you feel is relevant to your business that you want to set up, right? So I've got a little, these are just numbers I plugged in here, right? They're probably not very realistic, but advertising, I put like $150 a month, or a year, sorry, for advertising. Capital purchases, I put it all up front in the first year, $10,000 for some equipment, tools, or whatever. Also, sorry. Then you got fertilizer, fuel oil. Fuel oil is a pretty high expense, right? And greenhouse supplies, so buying fertilizers, potting soil, pots, whatever you need for your greenhouse. Insurance, and insurance will probably go up every year. And internet, like for web hosting fees, miscellaneous, I put a big number in there. Office expenses, payroll, so I'm paying some farm hands here